Bob, tell me about the poet.
Okay,
Yeah.
the poet. Yes, I'm a poet. Born in the sea, learned to talk all by myself. Never listened to no one. Always had ways with words sticking out of my mouth, shrapnel from grenade. Had a lover once who held my tongue in her mouth just to get me to quiet down. I loved her then. I love her now. Part of the job description is to be in love, to fall in love all the time. So I've been busy falling in love with her ever since we met. And I'm not finished yet. Today, I held her tongue for a long while. She's looking at me with her sun and her moon. Words slip between us, meaningful, improper, sky luna. Lemon library of gears. Lone whistle coyote. So the poet came out of the north with a tragic look on his face. You listen with all your ears. I speak with all my mouths. Let's do it alphabetically tonight. Big bald dictionary written on the city line. One foot in a basket of eels. The other a refulgent cigar. What's for breakfast? Silence. An egg of silence.
Wow.
There's a poet.
So that was Bob Holman, a poet, the owner of Bowery Poetry Club. And one of my favorite film scenes ever is from Howl. It was a movie based on Allen Ginsberg and also based on his epic poem. And towards the end, there's this wonderful scene where he's reading the last few stanzas of Howl, and they show the clips of people looking at him reading it. And he's reading with such passion, or the actor who's playing him.
James Franco.
James Franco is reading with such passion, and I see the people really feeling the emotion of the poem being read aloud.
Yeah.
And at that very moment in time, I was in my early 20s, and I thought to myself, this is how poetry is meant to be experienced. And you have facilitated that for many decades. Writing the two amazing books that are coming out, which is The Unspoken and Life Poem, which are written 50 years apart.
Oh, you got the wrap down. Look at that.
So I'm so excited today to walk around with Bob, who is a wonderful poet, and learn about the village through the eyes of a poet, especially since in New York City, a lot of people tend to think about punk music and they tend to think about jazz and movies. But poetry is also as important to all those other genres of art as anything else. So I'm excited to walk around. Let me know where you're watching from, and let me know what poetry do you love. There's many other poets out there in the world. One of my favorites is Allen Ginsberg and Bob himself. So let's walk around the East Village. So Bob, tell me where, let's read the village to set the scene of where we are. And then we're going to walk around the Bowery Poetry Club.
You want to do it right here?
Yeah, let's do it right here.
All right.
Actually, let's do it in front of this painting.
Okay.
Really nice. I'll be saying hi to people in the comments as well. So
okay.
Hi to them real quickly. Carrie, Rosalind, Hugh, Gail, Kay, Irene, and hello everyone. So this is Bob. Say hello to Bob, everyone, and let's read.
Okay, I'm going to read the poem in front of a painting by Elizabeth Murray here, it's she would know everything about this poem. It's called Village. I live in the village, not just any village, not just every village. Where the city becomes a village, that's my village. Where the intercontinental becomes the neighborly experiential, that's my village. Uptown, downtown, low down, no town. That's the place that's home sweet hometown. The village is where I live. Jane Jacobs is my patron saint. She lived it with her apron paint. Stuff she saw, she made you see the definition of reality. A mix, a mess, a mishigas, trees and cement, mental floss, ideas drip from a faucet, grew up in a bedroom closet. Circumambulate these concrete paths, tantric trails evanesce the globe, centered on this village energy rocket, simple pulse of living here, all lands and all peoples living here. Behind blinking windows of stacked buildings, population froths in undulating syncopation, utopic and grand, elegantly funked and plastered, mighty squat, humanness, the village. That's where I live.
That's amazing. All right, now
let's go to the village.
That is awesome.
They call it the East Village.
And
whatever.
let's show the book.
Okay.
Yeah.
The book, as you can see, we edited the title. It used to be called Bob Holman and the Spoken Word Movement, but we retitled it The Unspoken, and we even got a poem on the cover here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Who knows? Who cares? Why bother? How come? What possible difference could it make?
Oh. That's a good teaser for the rest of the book.
Good teaser, yeah. Right. Non-oralized. And the other book, you want to see the other one?
Yeah, which one was my copy?
This is your copy.
Okay, cool. I'll hold on to this.
Okay. And the other book was written 50 years. Here's Bob back in the day, back in 1969 when I was a participant in the Cummington Community of the Arts, an arts commune in the Berkshires. And it was really got me started with poetry in a living way. And there I am now with the grandkids.
Oh, that's wonderful. And Carrie asks, have you visited Kenya because she notices the blankets are from Kenya?
Yes, she's exactly right.
You did a TV show where you visited various places.
Yeah, I did. I visited West Africa and that, but I visited Kenya with the Stony Brook contingent up in Turkana. Up in, up way up north next to Ethiopia. And that's where we came across these with the Turkana people, though they are from another tribe. So, yeah, good eyes.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I like your sophisticated audience. All right.
And you're getting homesick. Well, you're gonna see a lot more of the village. And Kay is loving this.
Okay. Oh, I better grab my my outdoor activities. Phone and wallet, yeah. Okay. Okay.
So now we are heading towards the Bowery Poetry Club.
Yep, I'm going to put on a jacket, okay?
Yeah, so we're heading to the Bowery Poetry Club, which is poetry readings, slam poetry as well, haikus, also performances mixed with music.
Okay, I guess we're ready to do this thing.
Actually, put the mic on your jacket because it'll be a little bit better audio.
How's that?
That's perfect.
Groovy, perfect is acceptable. Okay, so let's do this thing. Whoops. It's typical. There we go. New York Exodus, always lock the doors. Gotta lock all those doors. Woo!
So we're going all the way to the
all the way to the ground floor, hanging a Ralphie.
And this was actually the first time I've featured a East Village apartment.
Well, it's not really typical, but it's definitely the East Village.
I think it's something that people, when they see film, that's what they think about.
That's what they think about. You know. Yeah, so here we are on the street where I live, the Bowery, the 310 Bowery Bar. This is the Bowery Poetry Club door here. Here's the window. This is where the people get their photo opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
Bob Holman in front of Bowery Poetry. Bowery Poetry. And we share the space with Duane Park, which is a supper theater,
Yeah.
live jazz and burlesque.
Live jazz and burlesque. Ooh, wonderful.
Old East Village traditions. Let's
When
see.
did the Bowery Poetry Club start?
In 2002, we opened. Yeah, just around this time of year.
Before then, you were a co-director of Nuyorican.
Exactly. Yeah, you've done your research here. Whoops.
Some wonderful words.
Oh yeah, this is Walt Whitman right up here. Yeah, for sure. You know.
He was based in New York, right?
Oh my goodness, yes, he was in Brooklyn. And here, I'll read it to you.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
This is what you shall do. Love the earth and sun and the animals, despise riches, give alms to everyone that asks, stand up for the stupid and crazy, devote your income and labors to others. Hate tyrants, argue not concerning God, have patience and indulgence towards the people, take off your hat to nothing known or unknown, or to any man or number of men. Go freely with powerful, uneducated persons, and with the young, and with the mothers of children. Read these leaves in the open air every season of every year of your life. Re-examine all you have been told at school or church or in any book. Dismiss whatever insults your own soul, and your very flesh shall be a great poem, and have the richest fluency, not only in words, but in the silent lines of its lips and face, between the lashes of your eyes, and in every motion and joint of your body.
Oh, wow.
Here's the Bowery Poetry Club.
Amazing.
Go on in. Yeah.
Space.
Now for many years,
Can you turn on the lights?
I don't know if I can get much more here. They're upstairs. This is about the. It's good.
Yeah.
You know. Here we go.
Wow, so you recently remodeled.
This was done about 7 or 8 years ago by the
Okay.
people at Duane Park, who, as I said, run the.
Beautiful bar.
There's a beautiful bar. You know, it's the old bar that we used to have down this away.
Oh, I see.
And this used to be a coffee shop, and the stage was all the way down there. But you know, poetry fits in everywhere, and
Yeah.
this is, you know, you know, we're really good, crazy, opposite partners. You know, these days the Duane Park is open from Tuesdays through Saturdays, and then they're dark on Sundays and Mondays, which is how we made the deal. We used to have it 7 days a week,
Yeah.
but never could quite make ends meet. But now we've got a great partner, and they pay the rent, which if you have a partner, that's one of the ways you know it's a great partner, if they pay the rent.
So you have poetry readings almost every day.
We used to. We have readings now only on Sundays and Mondays.
Oh, cool.
The other nights are the supper theater. They've already got their plates out. Look at this.
Yeah.
They're ready to go here.
And what
You know.
type of poetry readings usually happen here?
Oh, all different kinds. That's what we're known for, is our eclecticism. You know, definitely there's slam and spoken word, the kind of stuff that, you know, that I generally get categorized with, because I am, like you say, that's the origins of poetry,
Yeah.
are in the spoken word. The poems were created before there was any writing. Why do they call these poets spoken word poets, instead of calling the poets who came later and wrote, why don't they call them text poets? That's the question. Yeah, But at any rate, we also have formal book launches in here. We have a reading series in Spanish, Se Buscan Poetas, and we have we're going to have a benefit for a Lebanese poetry collective here in town, and it's really, really varied, which is part of our ethos.
And you've had poets here that have become world famous.
Well, we've had poets here who were world famous before.
That's awesome.
Before they did it, Kenneth Koch, my teacher at Columbia, gave his last reading here on this stage, and of course, Amiri Baraka held residence here with his jazz band, for many months. Taylor Mead, Andy Warhol's first superstar, used to do a weekly series here. Tuli Kupferberg of the Fugs, the Poets Rock and Roll Band, used to do a series here, Dr. John played on the piano when we were here for the Katrina benefit.
Yeah.
And it's just Alan was dead by the time we started, but he's here, and
his spirit lives on with the Howl Festival.
With the Howl Festival, and wait till you see this place across the street. Wait till I show you some places, okay?
Awesome. Perfect.
So, what do you say? Should I read a poem for Bowery? It's a kind of a shorty. It's called.
Actually, before you read that poem, what made you start the Bowery Poetry Club?
Well, I had. I'd worked at the St. Mark's Poetry Project, which is the other institution here, 50 years old now, started in '66. I'd worked there, and then I worked for the CETA Artists Project, which was a federally funded project to put people who were terminally unemployable, to retrain them and get them back into the workforce. And in New York City, they hired artists, 300 of us, the largest federally funded artist project since the WPA. And that's where I learned how to be an arts administrator. Graduated from there to the Poetry Project at St. Mark's. Went from there to help reopen the Nuyorican Poets Cafe that Miguel Algarin had started with Lucky Cienfuegos and Bimbo Rivas, and a bunch of marvelous poets, Pedro Pietri and Lois Griffith. Was there. And then I went into teaching. Yeah. But my family, my wife and kids, told me that I still hadn't finished my job. And that's when first I got into real estate, because I realized how, in order to have a poetry place, you had to own the building. So I found the investors to buy this building, which is why I'm on the third floor there. And so it's, we're sort of built in here. And we've been here ever since, I guess. So that's why I started, because we didn't have the
your story,
place like this.
Your story mirrors a lot of Joe Papp.
Oh, I tell you, Joe has started his public theater, the same way that the Nuyorican was started, which was an in-rem buildings that had been collected for back taxes, which really could happen back in those days. And
can I have you read it on the stage?
Oh yeah, sure, I'll read it on stage. Where in the hell is it, though?
And the name of the dinner club is
Duane Park. Okay. This is it's got nice background music here.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, here we go. Are we ready down there?
We're ready.
All right, this poem is called Canceling Gig Last Minute Bowery Poetry Club. Because there's no business in Poe business, but yet people don't realize that this is why we're partners with Duane Park. Somebody knows how to run a business. Poetry doesn't know how to run a business. But this is what happens, canceling gig last minute, Bowery Poetry Club. For the club, it means bartenders get no tips. Hi, Marissa. No tips on drinks, they don't ring. Sound guy sits around. Rent maws wide open, no ka-ching. That's all there is to it. Hi, sweetie. How are you? This is Ariel. He's doing a live podcast. You're being broadcast all over the world. So I wanted to have a talk with you because I want to talk to you about a gig possibility. Okay? You gonna be around later this afternoon?
All day.
I will come by.
I'll be leaving at 4 o'clock.
I will come by before 4, so around 3 probably. Okay? Great. So Marissa runs the Duane Park here, and I knew her when we lived down in. What did I do with my umbrella? There it is. When Elizabeth and I lived down in Tribeca, where she had her studio as part of our living situation, and where we raised the kids. Pretty much. We lived in the West Village too. Okay, goodbye. Wonderful space that's been through so many changes.
Coming here to both Duane Park and the Bowery Poetry Club.
That's a real good idea, Ariel. It's a real good idea.
Exactly.
Because, look at that, I need to polish my hair. So, Sundays and Mondays, Bowery Poetry Club, we have our open mic at 8:30 on both nights. So it really is open. That's what our mainstay is. It's just the mic is there. Let's use it. You know.
Of course. It's basically that scene from Howl, except without the cigarette smoke.
That's it.
Yeah.
And Jack Kerouac is still yelling, "Go man, go!" Am I carrying the book now? Is that okay?
Yeah, I can hold it.
Okay. Now you mentioned punk. You know, the Bowery used to be, it's always been the street of populist art. And this is where tap dancing began, where vaudeville began, where burlesque began. And right up there where you see that black awning, that was CBGB. Can you believe it? We still advertise that the Bowery Poetry Club is located across the street from CBGB's because that's where we do. We still think it is, even if it is a clothing store now that sells the same stuff that you used to rent. I mean, that you used to rip. Your jeans now are $400.
And there was some crossover, right? You guys were still open for?
Yes, at the beginning, yes. While Hilly was closing it, we were opening. Now wait till you see the name of this gallery right here.
All right.
Are you ready? Okay, Jane Dixon's show is up, but look who's up there.
Oh, Allen Ginsberg.
Yeah, this is the Howl Gallery. Let's go in and say hello to everybody.
Wonderful.
Hi, everybody. Okay, this is Ariel. He's doing a live walking tour podcast, and you're now being broadcast all over the world.
Wow.
So,
a tour of the wonderful East Village.
yeah, well, this is where everything starts in the wonderful East Village, you know. And that's another Elizabeth Murray piece there. That's her print. Daniel.
Elizabeth Murray wall.
The Elizabeth Murray art wall, the same as it was over at Poetry Club back in the day. How's everybody doing? Okay. Is this?
Why is it called the Howl Gallery?
That's because it is the Howl Gallery. You know, I mean, it was originally when Jane Friedman was running the Howl Festival with me and some other people too. We realized that there was a need for a spot, a place to be a year-round thing, and that's when Arturo Vega, who was the painter that worked with the Ramones, when he died, he helped. His estate basically helped to set up the Howl Gallery and Arturo Vega project. So here we are. We're actually living in history, living in. This is Jane Dixon, who knew 42nd Street in a way that.
She was like New York from like the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, she knew it. Yeah. Her partner is Charlie Ahern, who did all the hip hop movies. Okay. Well, no, thank these guys for allowing us to intrude. Yep.
So what cross streets we're on? We are at the Bowery and...
But Bowery, on First Street.
First Street.
This is Extra Place. This is where, back when CBGB's opened up back in here, the...
you used to open up back here?
Yeah, no, this is where you'd load in your equipment.
Oh, I see, I see.
This was a dirt alley.
Oh.
This was a dirt alley, and on this side was a parking lot that was that was filled with rats. Ooh. And now, what we've got here is one of the most famous restaurants in the world. This is Momofuku.
Oh, yeah.
Right here. Yeah. So.
Did you used to attend CBGB's?
Oh God, yes. And I actually was there when it was called Hilly's. Before it was called CBGB's. That's when I gave one of my first readings in New York City. Was at Hilly's down here.
When did you first come to New York?
I moved here to go to college from Kentucky and Ohio.
Yeah.
That was 1966. So a month after Hare died, one of my true heroes, and didn't get to meet him. But all the other guys that were around, my heroes, were here.
And are you involved with this?
Howl? Oh yeah, I'm on here. Oh, let's hear. Usually they have the names of us here, but it looks like.
Physical justice is just ice. And many years ago, I thought
John Giorno.
Oh, all right.
John Giorno, who just died back in November. His memorial was just at the St. Mark's Poetry Project.
That's wonderful that you have poetry available outdoors.
Available outdoor, just press for poetry.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And what was your first impression when you first came to New York?
Well, I had come here with my, conservative family when I was in high school, and knew that this was a place I wanted to be. You feel that. So I got, accepted at Columbia, where I have now become the guy I used to laugh at because I teach up there at times.
But the beatniks were a few of them went to Columbia, right?
Oh, absolutely. It was a hotbed. Ginsberg graduated from Columbia.
Yeah.
Kerouac did.
Burroughs.
Burroughs. I don't know if Burroughs went there or not. But he was certainly around in those days.
Yeah.
Right up there at the corner is the Anthology Film Archives. Used to be a courthouse. We're continuing across First Street. Where we started was the absolute foot of First. First is one of the shortest blocks shortest streets in New York City. It starts at the Bowery, 3rd Avenue, and it ends over here at First Avenue.
Well, that's a great observation.
So it's only 3 blocks long. This building is brand new.
It is.
Blocks my view of the sunrise.
Oh no. What was your first, when you first came to this area, how was it?
It was much tougher. The gentrification hadn't set in yet, but luckily there's still a lot of social welfare programs going on here. For example, right here is the Catholic Worker that was started by Dorothy Day, and
He sounds very familiar.
she was a nun, and this is a home and a place to eat, and we still got the Bowery Residence Committee over on the Bowery, and the Bowery Mission 2 blocks south, which is the longest running social mission in the city. Yeah.
So you really helped cultivate this neighborhood.
Well, the Bowery Poetry Club holds on to the old feelings of do-it-yourself art and the voice of the people, populist kind of entertainment that's always been on the Bowery, as it gentrifies all around us, And as a matter of fact, when the new museum, which is 2 blocks south of us on the Bowery, when they were moving in, Lisa Phillips and I had a lot of talks about whether or not the Bowery was ready for a major art museum. And there was no doubt. And now, the neighborhood just keeps changing. Here's Prune, which was the first, sort of chef-driven
Oh, the first one.
in the Lower East Side. In the Lower East Side. Yeah, back in the, I don't know exactly when, 80s or something like that. This is City Lore, which is the urban folklore center of New York. And the Bowery Poetry Club does a lot of projects with these guys, including the Poemobile, which is the school. It used to be an 88. I'm going to have to knock on the door, I guess. The bell must not be working.
And let them know that we're filming.
Oh yeah, okay. I'll let them know. We're filming. We're going to see this installation here. What we bring, new immigrant. How you doing? Good to see you. We are filming. We are sending. Sahar is a marvelous poet and works here. And these are the exhibit that's up. We're now going to cross through the immigration. I hope you guys brought your passports. You know.
Bob, this is Jeremy, a wonderful singer, musician.
Hi, Jeremy.
Flautist, Bob
Yeah,
Holman,
great. Nice to
Bowery
meet you.
Poetry Club.
Yeah.
Ariel.
Ariel, yeah. We're broadcasting live around the world right now, so just act like nothing's happening.
You didn't say that.
We're live right now?
Yeah. Well, it's a live podcast, whatever it is.
Nice.
Here's Raquel. She's always likes to be on TV, you know. Raquel, this is Ariel. Good to
Hi,
see
nice
you.
to meet you.
Yeah.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Jeremy, placer.
Jeremy, Raquel.
Okay.
¿Cómo estás?
Muy bien.
Placer.
Sí, placer. So let's go see if Steve is Steve here. So guess what? We are filming here.
Right now?
Yeah. Introduce yourself.
I'm Ariel.
Hi, I'm Jake. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Jake is working with the Poemobile project. We're going to go down to down south and bring together the people on both sides of the aisle when we're down there with this project we've got going called Crossing the Great Divide.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and he's going to start off by crossing the Great Divide at the pizza parlor that's down the street here.
Crossing the Great Divide of First Avenue.
Oh my goodness, that used to be the DMZ. You know, is Steve here?
Yeah.
He is? Okay, let's go bother the director here. Hey, there he is, Steve's Island.
Ariel.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, you're on being broadcast live right now.
Oh, no kidding.
Yes,
Well, welcome
good.
to the world.
Yeah, and City Lore is, just the place to find out what the true culture of the city is. Of New York City, and these guys have been here forever. Good partners with the Bowery Poetry Club.
You guys archive or?
Yes, we do. Yeah, you see these boxes right here. I mean, we have most of our stuff, of course, now is digital, but we have tons of slides and cassette tapes and DAT tapes and all kinds of other outmoded archival documents.
That's right.
That's amazing.
Nothing. That's going to be a whole industry keeping alive the Hiroko here is wearing a mask. Good.
Yeah.
The coronavirus. Okay.
Well, a lot of these relics from the past, like they need to be saved because they could disappear.
The People's Poetry Gathering
Oh, cool.
that we did together.
2001. Wow.
Oh my goodness, big.
First one was 1999.
Yeah.
Here.
And how do you two know each other?
I guess it was through
Through
poetry,
this,
but
through
although
the
we've discussed, we
People's
talked
Poetry.
in yesterday that we really met because our kids went to the same arts summer camp.
Oh, I see.
That was the first time.
Same
But
as-
this is
our
where
kids
we.
are the exact same age.
That's it.
Oh,
Exact
wonderful.
same age. Yeah.
And do you guys still collaborate?
Yes.
Oh, lots. Like I was saying, the Poemobile is a collaboration that Jake is working on too, and we are going to go down to some bluegrass festivals and other festivals in the South with our ideas that red and blue actually mix into purple. I don't know. He says we can do it. We started with some Trump supporters up in Westchester County near where Steve lives, and the guys who fix the Poemobile, which he used to break down all the time. The city just gave us a new school bus, so we got brand new wheels. But in the old days, we used this garage. Really neat guys who actually wrote poems for us that discussed their Trumpian
view of the world.
proclivities. Yeah.
I think poetry does transcend political
Yeah.
alignments.
Well, sometimes they say that saying poets for peace is the same thing as saying generals for war. But okay, let's hope it crosses over. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Esteban. There's our endangered languages poster, Okay, no more bothering you. We're disappearing. Thank you. Nice to meet you, Jeremy. See you later, Sahar. We'll pass out again.
This is called a gimbal, a DJI Osmo.
And look at this.
Yeah,
Wireless.
it's connected with the cell phone. Yeah, so this is a stabilizer, keeps it stable.
Oh my God.
And this is a microphone.
That's nice, Bob.
This guy's a pro.
¿Tú eres puertorriqueño?
No, soy Costa Rica, soy tica y española.
Oh, ok.
Mi papá de España, mi mamá costarriqueña.
Oh, ok.
Imagínate, una mezcla que...
Sí, un barrio tan diverso aquí.
That's my barrio too. Es lo mismo. El barrio conmigo.
Oh, and there's a gift shop.
Oh, there is a gift shop, of course. And here in the gift shop is the Kansei, Poem of Many Tongues, that Steve and I did. This is a 15-minute filmed poem. You can find this on the website, if you can look this up in Devarangi. But it's also Kansei, which has, it's 15 minutes, 50 different languages. All of them endangered. Here's a...
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Including Welsh, right?
Oh, yes.
Which you were involved
Welsh,
in.
Cymraeg. Yes, I was, that's where, I've actually, one of my Welsh poems made it into the finals of the poetry slam, which is called Stomp. Whoops, the Stomp.
And I love how this has a great collection of New York City
Artifacts and books
yeah.
and all that, all the above.
Yeah, I see a DVD about mambo and hip hop. That's cool.
That's very cool. Also produced here by City Lore.
And I featured also the two photographers who made that book.
Oh, super duper. Well, you got it all. Yeah, it all ties together when you're walking the streets.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And hello, Jeff from Portland. Your daughter just started at Park. Oh, wonderful. And hello, Johan, Duane from Gainesville. And welcome everyone. Let me know where you're watching from, and let me know if you have any questions for Bob whatsoever. So, did you ever actually meet any of that beatnik crew?
Of course, all of them. Well, I didn't meet Kerouac, and I didn't meet. Frank Hare was not a beat poet, I guess you say. But I did, hung out with Alan a lot. Went to Nicaragua with him, and Gregory Corso, of course, was always around, and Ray Bremser. There's just Jack Micheline, Ted Jones. I went down to Africa the first time to try to see Ted in Timbuktu.
Yeah.
He lived in Paris, New York, and Timbuktu. And I did finally make it there many years later when I made this film about the griots of West Africa and went to Timbuktu in search of Ted.
Which is available on YouTube.
Yes, yeah, it's called On the Road with Bob Holman. I wonder where he got that title from. Let's see.
And
Here
that's why Bob is so comfortable on camera, because you've done a lot of TV shows.
This is
and
true.
Two documentaries, right?
That's right. Well, the United States of Poetry is kind of that is a poetry film that was made in the 90s, and it has 60 poets in it for PBS. That's 5 different shows. You can find that on Amazon Prime, the United States of Poetry. And
Also,
Language Matters, which won the Best Documentary Award from the Berkeley Film Festival. And that was an hour-and-a-half documentary made with David Grubin that is got, what has it got? It's got, oh yeah, we're in 3 different locations. We start off in Australia with Charlie Mangolda, who is the last speaker of a language called Ammerdak. You know, before the white fella came, there were 350 languages in Australia, some as different as Polish and Chinese, you know, but now there's fewer than 50 and they're all endangered. So it's a very, you know, the language crisis mirrors the endangered species crisis. They're endangered languages. Although if you're living in them, you don't want to think of them as endangered. You want to think of them as your heritage language. And these languages can be brought back to into common usage.
And here in New York, we're in a very unique spot
Woo!
for restoring those languages.
That's right. Thank goodness for the Endangered Language Alliance and Dan Kaufman and Ross Perlin, who are working so diligently to keep the languages going. We just came out with a map. This is what you were referring to before, with the 800 languages. Well, it's 800 in the city, but most of them, you know, if you can't find them in Queens, you can't find them. You know, that's true. You know, but yeah, the map shows the locations of them, and the office of the Endangered Language Alliance is just a beehive of activity for speakers of minority languages to come in and record their languages, talk about them. They do a live show. It's, you know, I studied with Papa Suso, who is a griot from the Gambia. He just got back into New York. I don't know if anybody saw those koras sitting in the corner, koras in the corner.
Yeah.
But Papa, oh, wait a second. We're crossing over too far. Yeah, we got to go this way.
We have a fan of yours, Gail. Also Gail, that you know of Bob. Let me know if you have any favorite poems of Bob's.
Hello,
We
Gail.
have an entire book for you.
Yeah.
Are you involved with any initiatives in saving languages here or collecting them here in New York City?
Oh, sure. You know, we have a reading series that takes place at the Bowery Poetry Club, and one of the things that we discovered was that even though the cultures are so distinct, the problems are very similar when you have just a constantly decreasing number of speakers, you know. So and so we crossed over a lot of those cultural barriers, I guess you call them, and even put out a CD of a band that was comprised of 2 different languages, 2 different cultures. The Breton culture, a Celtic culture, the Celtic culture that's in France, there in Brittany, the north of France.
I have a friend who's Briton, and he's very passionate about keeping the language alive. So much so he has like a group here,
yes,
like 30 people who all continue to speak it.
Now, is he in Queens?
He's not in Queens.
You see, that's what I'm saying, man. The Manhattan, the Bretons, you see, they're not all in Queens. The Breton people tend to be around Hell's Kitchen in New York City. But the other language is Garifuna. Garifuna is like one of the last, or the last, Arawak Indian indigenous language that can be found in Belize and in Guatemala and
Probably Cuba as well.
No, not in Cuba, because they were on an island. Gosh, how come I can't remember? It starts with a G, Saint something Island, and then they were kicked off and they landed over on Honduras and Belize. So that's where they primarily are. Here's the pizzeria up here that.
Two Boots, yeah.
Yeah, this pizzeria was was started after the closing down of our favorite pizzas in pizza place outside the
What was the pizza place before here?
That's what I'm trying to. It starts with an M. Let's see if we can find it.
No, it's not paid for yet. Sorry, I should have told you before I went to bed.
What do you?
Oh, I don't.
You still have that piece where you get? Oh, the orchidea. That's it. You still offer the orchidea? 5 different toppings? Maybe not. Don't offer the orchidea anymore. Yeah.
Done that in a couple of years.
Hi, I'm Bob Holman,
Justin.
friend of Phil's.
Nice to meet you.
you.
How are you?
Good. Yeah, we're putting a podcast up. We couldn't resist stopping in, and because the smell works through the digital smell. Okay. Thanks, guys. Nice to meet you. Yeah. I had to walk in and get the smell to remember orchidea. You know.
Your pizza places, but don't expect classic New York City style because they use corn dough.
Yeah, they use cornmeal on the dough.
It's worth it.
And I like the crunch. It's called 2 boots because the boots are Italy, pizza, and Louisiana, which is also shaped like a boot. And in Louisiana, you get the hot sauce. So their sauce is spicy, unless you ask for the kid sauce.
Let's stop over here. Have you ever been involved with the UCB or?
I was involved.
crossover?
This was before it was UCB. It was the Pioneer Movie Theater, and it actually had a lot to do with my starting the Bowery Poetry Club. So Phil Hartman, the guy who started the 2 Boots and who also started the Howl Festival.
Same as actor Phil Hartman?
No,
Okay,
different. To differentiate,
Okay.
different. This guy's alive.
Okay.
You know,
okay.
and he's kicking. And he created the 99-seat theater in there. This is a beautiful jewel box of a theater that UCB took over, and now it's for rent again if anybody wants to start something. So, yeah. This looks like Kenny Scharf here is doing the artwork. This is an old-time graffiti artist here, you know.
And if you're just tuning in, I'm with poet Bob
Hi, everybody.
Holman, sorry. And we are, well, he's the owner of the Bowery Poetry Club.
Yeah.
And Founder and owner, yeah.
It's hard to be an owner of a poetry club, you know.
And then someone asked, what are like the most popular New York City-based poets, aside from yourself, that you've seen or you encountered?
Well, sure, you know, I guess you have to have Quincy Troop is going to be there, David Henderson. These are the guys that were, David was part of the Umbra Poets. We're heading over here deeper into the East Village where Steve Cannon held court.
Okay.
And we'll read a poem about Steve. There's also La Bruja, a great Puerto Rican poet, you know. And there's Marie Howe, who was poet laureate of New York, and she just gave up her crown to Alicia Ostreicher, who just moved back here from New Jersey. She's another born in New York person. So these are all names of poets that you should know.
Awesome list to check out. And I assume a lot of them have videos on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
Performing live at Bowery.
Yeah, you can find a lot of Bowery poetry videos up here. Sarah Kay, started off at the Bowery Poetry Club.
And she was one of the earliest that had gone viral.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. One of the earliest viral poets. Yes, indeedy. And it's woo! We should have had a slice of pizza.
Gwen says, "Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge." Yeah, you know so much about this neighborhood.
Well, you walk the streets. It's interesting. Jack Micheline called Bleecker Street, which dead ends at CBGB's there.
Yeah.
He then called the First Street, where Bleecker ends, you make a half a block right, and you're on First Street, where it begins. So he used to call it East Bleecker. First Street he knew as East Bleecker.
And throughout the decades, how did this area change in the
Oh,
70s?
good! I can't tell you. I mean, the one thing you could do is go see the. On my website, there's a bunch of videos that I made in the 80s for WNYC television.
Yeah.
And one of them is by Diane Burns, who is an Anishinaabe Indian. And it's just, there you see the way that this neighborhood, all these neighborhoods were completely blown out. None of these buildings were here. This building, over here is Joe Overstreet's sculpture garden for his Kinkelaba house. Let's go take a peek at that.
Yeah.
Joe just died this year too.
One of the many community gardens here
Yeah,
in City.
yeah.
So this a lot of people used to know it as Lower East Side.
This was, or as it is in Puerto Rican, Loisaida.
Loisaida, yeah.
Loisaida, we call it. You know, that's from Bimbo Rivas, the poet. Joe Overstreet's Kinkelaba house, which is that building behind us there, which is open a lot. It's an art gallery, predominantly African American. You know.
Joe Priscilla?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Beautiful
Joe.
sculptures.
Yeah. There it is. You know.
And is there a lot of crossover with poetry?
Oh, I forgot to. Oh well. Anyway, it says up there, Reverend Pedro Pietri Way on the street sign.
Okay.
We don't have to go back and look at it. Take my word for it, because we're up right beside the Nuyorican now, and I will be reading a poem for Pedro when we're standing in front, because it'll be good to have this. I would like a copy of this. I've never done this, to read Pedro's poem in front of the mural of Pedro here. He and I met at the CETA Artists Project that I mentioned earlier. He was also a CETA poet. It's just such a wonderful program. You see, it was
Pedro.
Pedro Pietri was one of the great Nuyorican poets.
Yeah.
You know, Nuyorican, New York plus Puerto Rico, right? Nuyorican. And it was as many things It was started off as a kind of a put down. A Puerto Rican born in New York, had never been back to Puerto Rico, goes down there with the bell-bottom pants and the stacked heels and the velvet shirt, and get off the plane and say, "I'm home." And the guys there say, No, you're not Puerto Rican, you're Nuyorican. I said, okay, we're Nuyorican. We're the Nuyorican Poets Cafe. Here's Pedro. This is Pedro Pietri.
What intersection is this? Where are we right now?
We're on 3rd Street between A and B. Yeah.
And this is special for me because as a fellow Nuyorican, I can relate to that being of two cultures.
Yeah.
And I've always been meaning to come inside here.
Well, we'll buzz the buzzer, but let me read the poem first.
Of course.
We'll buzz the buzzer and see if anybody's home. There should be, you know. Usually it takes them a while to come to the door, but they're usually here. Now, where did I put?
Oh, and Jeff has another great question. Where do all the best poets hang out to eat?
Oh,
Is there any hangouts for poets aside from the Bowery Poetry Club?
you got to go to Washington D.C.
Yeah.
to find the poetry restaurant. That would be Busboys and Poets. If you're in D.C., you go there.
Oh, wonderful.
You know, and here, where do people go? I guess we go to Two Boots Pizzeria a lot, for sure.
And there was a hangout with Ginsberg.
Well, there was a cafeteria on 8th Street, and there of course were the coffee shops on Bleecker and McDougal, the Cafe Remo, you know, that they had. You know, where's Pedro? Well, this has always happened.
Bob is going to read us another of his poems.
Yeah, if he can find it.
The links to both of his books are in the description below. Check it out. And let us know if you have any questions whatsoever about the East Village and the Lower East Side of Loisaida. Because Bob has been here for many decades, seeing so much of this neighborhood.
on the street named Pedro Pietri. On a most amazing day, you were born and you were died. We was waiting for you everywhere, and you surprised us. Come on through here. Yes, no, lo siento. We was waiting for you everywhere, and you surprised us by showing up everywhere else. Where once were bottles, now only bottle caps hang in mid-joint, waiting for the air to turn into red wine and cheeseburgers at the Church of Our Lady of Tomatoes for $5 a piece. All the bottle caps without bottles will be redeemed. Hey, now that you have a street named after you, maybe they will get you a car. But you know you need the okay of the Latin Insomniacs motorcycle gang without motorcycles to set up toll booths at both ends of the block. So once you pay to get in, you can also pay to get out. Unless the toll booth keeper is at the other end of the one-way street that never ends, and you get to stay forever in the bodega that doesn't sell anything, because it's made out of loose joints and condoms. And the only way you can get in is to smoke your way in and screw your way out. And when you drive your black helicopter over the street that has your name and see the great balls of fire that are being lit up in your name, you may very well want to change your name. But you can still pick up that notebook you left in the telephone booth that time and make your escape into the day where it is always night, and laugh at the poets who try to make sense of the fact that a street that has your name on it, but you will never walk on it because you are too busy writing a new subway that runs directly under the street that has your name, where you are on an uptown train going downtown, and you name it Speedo.
Wow, that was wonderful.
That's Pedro's nickname, was Speedo.
Speedo.
Yeah.
And when did he pass away?
2003.
2003.
Yeah, we did a show together called the Double Talk Show, or Double Talk Show, depending. It was the only late night TV talk show not on TV. And we did it at the Life Cafe, and we did it at the Coney Island, and all over town we did it.
I love how you use so many New York City references in your poems.
Well, you know,
the train.
they're great. Oh, the trains. He's the one who coined that phrase. You know, like, I'm on a downtown train going uptown. You know, that's where Pedro was. You know, he died on March 2nd or 3rd, because between two languages. He was in Mexico to try to get his stomach cancer cured by those guys who dig in and pull it out, you know. And he came back with Papaleto Melendez on an Air Force plane that was in the air when he died. So he was on a time zone. They don't know whether it was, and at midnight, of course. So they don't know whether it was March 2nd or 3rd. So that's what his obituary reads. Died March 2nd or 3rd, 2003. Yeah. Between two cultures, and he died high in an airplane. That's Pedro. That's Pedro. You know, that's the way he is. You want to see if anybody's here? You want to see what it looks like? Okay.
And Jeff mentioned that you mentioned the phone booth.
Yeah,
Which are no longer around.
There's a few, but not many. Not many. Oh yeah, the Nuyorican is actually under close watch by the Department of Buildings right now, because there's a little alleyway here that's the second means of egress for the club, and it's written into the lease that will be maintained. I mean, the bill of sale, which was, this building was bought the same time that Joe Papp bought the Public Theater. Hi, it's Bob Holman. Anybody home? Okay. Hey, how's it going? I got this guy Ariel with me here who's making a live podcast. Is that cool? I'm Bob.
Hi.
What's your name? Chris. I've met you. How you doing?
Nice to meet you. Of course I know about you.
Yeah.
I explore history and would love to see the Nuyorican.
Yeah, unfortunately, for anything that has to do with filming, we have to get our executive director.
No problem. Is Dan here?
Unfortunately, he's not
Okay.
here.
Say hello to Dan for us.
Yeah.
No biggie.
I'm sure if you do you have his contact?
Oh yeah,
I'm
all
sure
set.
he'll
It'll be fine. We're just doing this very spontaneously.
Yeah, I'm
no
so sorry.
worries.
No worries at all.
It's
Yeah.
really nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Meet you
take
too.
it easy.
Have a good day.
Okay.
All right, next time.
Well, I don't need to tell you. I think that the people watching this can draw their own conclusions from that interaction,
Oh, indeed.
But there you go. The cafe had been closed since it opened here in like 1981 or something. And it stayed open for 2 more years. Those were years I was working at the St. Mark's Poetry Project. And we did a lot of cooperative programming between the two. And that's when I started the poetry slams here that Mark Smith had started in Chicago. And I went out there and learned how he was doing it. And
That's wonderful that
got back in there.
they're so close proximity to each other.
Yeah.
Go poetry hopping.
Yeah.
And
Well,
how was your experience working as a co-director for the Nuyorican?
Oh man, it was like most amazing. The Nuyorican, like Puerto Rico, as you know, is a tiny island.
Yeah.
And the number
It's a
of
huge
poets
population.
who come from there is just extraordinary. Jorge Brandon was the first cat that I met. He was on the streets. He was a sign painter, and he'd push his cart that had all of his sign painting, buckets and brushes and everything, and he'd read poems as he came down. So here I are crossing Avenue B.
And Loisaida, yeah.
And this is C, Loisaida Avenue, as you see.
Stands for Lower East Side.
Lower East Side, Loisaida. Very great. Spanglish, that's true Spanglish.
Yeah,
I'm going to go down here a little bit because I want you to see one last outpost, and then we'll head up to Tompkins Square Park.
Perfect.
So right down here is a townhouse that was owned by Steve Cannon, and his townhouse was an art gallery, a performance space, and the last crash pad of the Lower East Side. And Steve Steve was blind. He went blind.
He
was a gallery owner.
Yes, he was the only admittedly blind gallery owner in New York City.
Interesting.
And this is the building right here, 285. And this is the stoop that we used to sit on and have poetry workshops. And when...
Workshops,
Oh, yeah, right here on the stoop. And we published Steve published a magazine, Gathering of the Tribes, which still exists. Steve died last July, and we had, how you doing? That's okay. No. Hey, didn't mean to scare you. Oh, I'm too scary. That's the only problem. And right across the street is the Bullet Space, which is one of the places that was homesteaded.
It's also a theater.
It's a theater, gallery. The culture is alive here. You just got to find it.
It is.
So that was a squat, the Bullet Space. And
it's great that you can experience all these different cultural events
this
in
is-
just one single place.
this is still from the event we had here in November.
Oh,
Because we started there in the Bullet Space. We brought up a band. From New Orleans, because Steve was from New Orleans, and had a real New Orleans funeral right down the street here, all the way over to St. Mark's Church, and there we had great performances, readings, music, and fed 500 people red beans and rice. So let's do a poem for Steve. What do you say?
Yes, of course. Let's do it.
Yeah. There's Pedro again. Hell and High Water, Steve Cannon praise poem. So Steve is on his couch, and the world is his psychophysicist rink, and he's buzzing and noozling, which is his way of writing. Pontificate ash falling on page writing, down everything everybody's saying, seeing eye poet. Every damn time they say it, it's like Joe Gould, and if you don't know who Joe Gould is, then go Google, motherfucker. Go find out who Joseph Mitchell was while you're at it, and then read more New Yorker than the cartoons. Damn it. The Oral History of the Universe is world's longest book, is a hoax. Of course, don't bother with the damn New Yorker poems. It's like the way we don't mind calling up Winton and asking him to play a benefit for tribes. But I'll be damnation in a barrel of pasteles if I'd ever not know him the way Butch Morris would drop by and John Ferris. And then when Zoe lit the damn building like a cigarette and Baraka, he'd drop by and Ishwood and all them guys. And there he'd be. The professor, sitting there, slouched there, reclining with a cigarette like the time Zoe lit the building up like a torch, a church, of fireworks. Hell or high water kind of place. The second line in Nolan's kind of like the parade that we did to reopen the Nuyorican from Mikey's ashes. And don't ever let that slip by when they count the years those doors were open and forging the signature on the Niska apps and all that shit. And all that shit went down like Tribes Goes On. Come hell or high water, the last poet, Sekou, and of course Jane Cortez. I thought I'd never see the day Jane be crying because 6 months after her Serpent Tail book was published, they took it out of print. Now, who ever thought that? Not me, or my name's not Steve Cannon, and of course it's not. You'd never hear that kind of thing happen at Fly By Night Press because we already said we don't pay our bills cause we fly by night, which is to say, we're all blind. And just as soon as David Hammonds drops by to sign the couch and the piece, we've got it all in storage. Sign it, come on, hell or high water. That's $1 million right there. The only admittedly blind art dealer in New York has spoken, or should I say, heckled. Yes, come hell or high water, the only paid heckler in New York. And there it is, Steve Cannon praise poem. Steve, we miss you. Ashe, yeah.
Rest in peace. I love that you said Barrel Pasteles.
Oh, man.
We're right across the corner where I buy pasteles for the holidays.
From Adela's?
Yeah.
Adela's has got the best pasteles. Of course, I had homemade pasteles by Elena Hernandez and Bobby Sanabria. He's a musician, she's a folklorist. And they made the best pasteles. Okay, that was the end of that story. Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's wonderful. And so you've had so many connections also with Puerto Ricans.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's the neighborhood.
Any other ethnicities that crossed over a lot?
Well, this neighborhood is African American and Puerto Rican, Nuyorican. Yeah. So you do that, and of course now the DR is all over the place. The Dominicana, they're here. But the artists down here is it's totally multiculti from the get. And Steve, who was African American, is the biggest proponent of that kind of multiculti. Yeah. And at the Nuyorican back in that time, which is when he opened up the Gathering of the Tribes, the Nuyorican was just reopening then, and so there was the tendency, and we were getting a lot of press. The slam was built for getting attention. You can't put a number, not today, but at that time, it was when the universities were starting to develop these departments for African American studies and Hispanic studies and Asian and women and all this. Well, so you could either go to the universities and study it, or you could come down to the Nuyorican and hear the voices of hear the words from the people who spoke them, young folks coming in and reading their poems. And of course, they got to, there got to be some signature poems, and that's all that anybody read. Here's Casa Adela. If people want to come and really have authentic Puerto Rican food, although Adela died last year too, everybody did. Hello, how you doing? Yeah. So that was the start. So there's a multicultural. What I'm saying is that the art scene down here is multicultural, and the generosity of the Puerto Rican people was instrumental in allowing that to ferment.
Is there a lot of crossover between different disciplines? Because I know Philip Glass lived nearby.
Philip Glass lives over on 3rd Street there.
Yeah, and he had concerts with Allen Ginsberg reading his
Oh
poems.
yeah, well see that had to do with Naropa, the Buddhist college, the only degree-granting Buddhist institution in the country out in Boulder, Colorado. Ann Waldman started that with Allen, and it became a mecca for artists to collaborate, but also because there's a crossover with Buddhism. That Allen's was the Beatles got into it, and John Giorno, who we heard on the Poetry Jukebox, was a devout Buddhist. His memorial at St. Mark's Church the church was filled with Buddhist prayer flags, and I got to just give a pitch for meditation here. That the ability to just sit, is such stillness, silence, getting to know and even train your own mind is such a relief,
I'm glad you mentioned that because I've recently been getting into Rumi. And I love how profound his work is.
Yeah. Well, are you reading the Coleman Barks translations?
Yes, precisely.
Yeah. Well, there are people who think that Coleman takes too much leeway with his translations. He doesn't speak Farsi. But
I can only imagine you may have to because of the.
Well, I've translated part of my book. Sing This One Back to Me is translated from the languages that Papa Suso speaks, which include Mandinka and Bambara and Fulani, among others.
How is it translating poetry?
Oh, it's like poetry. It's really nicely freeform.
I see.
Yeah, why not? We'll cut across 7th Street here.
Yeah, because I imagine you can't be too literal because then you might lose the meaning.
Well, something is always lost in translation, but then something is always gained. And you got to cross cultures with it. I have a poem in here in Welsh. I wonder if I can find that.
Oh, yeah, we'd love to.
This is a good place for a Welsh poem, don't you think?
I think so.
Yeah, of course.
So we're heading to our last stop, Thompson Square Park. Feel free to ask any questions whatsoever of Bob, his poetry, the East Village.
Maybe
Teresa says, how can one become a member or help with the Poetry Club?
Okay, well, our membership is sort of on hold right now. We're sort of between directors, as they say. Yeah. But you can donate money by going to our website and helping out, or by coming by and reading your own poems. That's a way to do it. If you're in town, whenever you're in New York.
Let's do it over here. The community
garden. Let's do it in front of the community garden.
Yeah, and the Poetry Club is very open to all voices.
Yes, we have those open mics on Sundays and Mondays at 8:30. Most weeks. Check our website out. It's a good website.
And both to professionals and amateurs alike.
Exactly. There's much difference, the way poetry audiences are. Clogni Oshin.
So actually, let's set this up. You are reading a poem right now in Welsh.
That's
which
right.
is one of the-
Oh my goodness, how you doing?
Sorry.
Good. Good to see you.
You're reading one of the poems in Welsh, which used to be an endangered language.
Right, it's the only language to come off the endangered language list is Welsh, you know? And how they did that was by giving people a choice what language they wanted. Not forcing you to learn a language that you didn't want to, but making it available to you. You know, while the U.S. was fighting, while Ireland was fighting, you know, with guns, and their poets were all writing in English, Yeats, and, you know, and Joyce, you know. The Welsh were fighting for cultural parity, not independence. It's such an, and you hear much less about that because it's a, you know, something. It's more. It's a subtler thing.
Yeah.
You know. Clogni Oshin. Llyn is the Llyn Peninsula that juts out from Wales there. Gwachida Norwyll Cillym, ac agorodd gyda ffleim. Cadarndroed I grisiaw, I ffini clogin Gwyneth Fian. Ringsian glaw rimo, pwyso I moyn môr. Bydd I bydd tan i'n rad ac i'n ddim ac i'n pasio iddo. Neud glyfim cyn I sio sysgoth. Nawr mae'n priffordd, super I rock and roll, treu dapio alangan I gerdd. The cliffs of Llyn, knit with a rapid needle and unraveled with a scalpel, sure-footed steps up the granite cape, gnashing rain leaning into sea. Free will and fire will overtake him, leap fast before the shadow show. Now it's a superhighway to rock and roll. Feet tap out poems song.
Wonderful.
Cliffs
That
of
was
Llyn.
That was the translation? Or?
That's a translation. Yeah.
And it's a beautiful language. It's very different from...
Oh, yeah, but it uses English letters, but they all sound different, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Especially that voiceless, fricative sound, you know? It's really great.
And how is
Double
it,
L. That's a
how's it-
double L.
How's it making poetry in different languages?
Oh, well, you think different, you know, definitely. It's a different culture. Every language is a different consciousness, you know. For example, that Ammerdoc that I mentioned that Charlie Mangala speaks, you know, usually we say, you know, you can translate anything into any other language. You can always do it. But like you say, there's things that are lost, but it's hard to say exactly what is lost. You know, maybe you got to eat that madeleine or eat that bagel or eat that empanada, you know, you got to figure out, or that pastelle. So, but there is a difference with Ammerdoc, that you can really know, and which really sets up the difference of how cultures differentiate, how the systems of consciousness, which is that there's no left or right in Ammerdoc. There's only the cardinal directions.
East, west?
East, west, north, south, in case you're... And, you know, like he said, Charlie would say, I got to move my foot a little bit over to the southeast.
So they're always very well-oriented.
They're well-oriented, but it's not around themselves. They're oriented to being in the universe, you know, but it's never my left and my right. You don't have any. The only place you are is where you are in the world, on the planet. That's a different way of thinking.
Yeah, very
Yeah,
different.
and we wouldn't know that except that now this guy's the last speaker. Now there are a couple of other tiny languages that use this, but if we didn't have that, we wouldn't know that there is a way of thinking where you are not the center of the universe, where you are just another participant in the great play that never ends.
It's interesting because I was reading about Vietnamese, and in Vietnam they don't have such high incidence of depression despite having so much war.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And one crossover that I think it was Malcolm Gladwell that he made this assertion that in Vietnamese there's no past tense. They're always most of the tense is always present. So they don't tend to think about the past, or they tend to project themselves
Interesting
into the
thought.
future.
Chinese is the same way, you know. So I guess a lot of those Asian languages are like that. But
Gail has a great question. What is the relationship between poetry and migration?
ooh, well, I'll tell you one story that one of the great epic poems of Australia is written on a bone, and it is both a poem and also their map of how to find the watering holes out in the middle of the desert.
Fascinating.
So how many days you have to go in what direction and all this, you know. So those song lines, as they call them, move from one language to another. So I think that with migration, it's how do you hold on to your own language and culture when you are, moving into a country that's not your own. Again, in Australia, it used to be that if you were in a territory that was this language, you couldn't speak unless you spoke in that language. And that's why people there speak 5-6 languages with no problem, you know.
You mentioned something in a podcast that learning languages is actually much easier than people think it is, but they get caught up in the verbs and the tenses. And
well, it's not easier if you've learned how to learn, because you don't learn a language, you acquire it.
Yeah.
And so the best language learners we have are kids who don't know yet that there are parts of speech and have to get their tongues tied up. All they do is listen to you and answer you.
Yeah.
You know, and they learn how to do that. So if you can retain the poet you are in childhood and let your imagination run free and simply respond to whoever's talking to you, you know, they're courageous, those little pumpkins.
Speaking of that, the reason I personally like poetry is that you can play around with language. Like, you don't need to stick to structure or to particular words, even.
Well, I think that is the correct approach. This is Tompkins Square Park, known for the draft riots around the Civil War, but also known for the police riots of 1988, when the homeless encampment here just spread over the whole park, and the police came in and took no prisoners in getting people out.
Were you present for that? Were you around the neighborhood?
I was not in town when that happened. But I've got Clayton Patterson.
Yeah.
You know, Clayton did some amazing video work.
And
it's quiet here today.
How has this park changed? Because I know this park has been through a lot.
Well,
as you mentioned,
it's looking pretty good. You know, the feel of it hasn't changed.
I mean, we also have the Hare Krishna tree.
Well, the Hare Krishna tree, as you say, exactly. That was Alan's tree.
Oh, it was Alan's tree?
Oh, yeah. And he is, he's got a lot of photos of him doing readings here. And of course, there used to be a band shell right up here across from the Hare Krishna tree. And I'll read a couple of poems.
Yeah.
And
the tree.
Yeah, of course.
There was an anecdote that Allen Ginsberg loved to chant ohms at parties in the East Village. Do you know if that was has any truth to it?
We should have walked past 27 Cooper Square, where Hetty Jones, first wife of Leroy Jones, Amiri Baraka, still lives, and where my wife Elizabeth lived too. She took over Archie Shep's apartment in there, in that building. That was the place where Alan and Peter lifted up the sofa and told everybody in the party had to get underneath the sofa. They were naked at the time. That had nothing to do with what you had to do to get under the sofa, but you had to get under the sofa. You know, so I think we should all meet. Everybody who's watching this podcast, we should all meet under the sofa, right beside the Hare Krishna tree. This is where we scattered Steve Cannon's ashes too. Yeah.
So this is a hangout spot for people beyond Hare Krishna.
Yeah. It's well, like I say, there used to be a big band shell right here, but they tore that down. Now you have to put up a stage. The Howl Festival happens right, used to happen right here, all over the park, but right here was where the performances were.
And the way you read poems is very simple. To me, it sounds very similar to Allen Ginsberg.
Well, he was a great teacher, and he was, the best. It was completely, thank you,
Him and Neruda stick out to me.
Oh my God.
They love to intonate in very interesting ways.
Well, how about, there's Mayakovsky, the Russians were also great at this, Yevtushenko was also a great influence on me. He and Vazhnesinsky used to read, Yevtushenko especially was that, but you want to make it like that, but you also want to make it like the New York school and just be right at home.
Yeah.
You got to hit all of those notes in it. Language is that kind of, Ouroboros eternity, or something like that. Okay, Tompkins Square Pastoral.
Right. The final poems by Bob.
Oh, I'm going to do two.
Two poems.
Maybe I should do this real stage in like a punk festival first, and then I'll do Tompkins Square. Okay.
The final two poems by Bob
Two
Holman.
more. That's all. Let me go home.
And actually, before you start reading, I want to ask one more question. Is what was the relationship between hip hop and poetry? Because
Woo!
I know you were involved in that.
Oh yeah, well I was the guy that said hip hop is poetry, and that's what I still say. Even though hip hop is now globally more popular than poetry, it still is a type of poetry. And that's why I went to Africa the first time, was just to find out about the roots of hip hop in Africa, and. Papa Suso, the griot, as I mentioned, is a teacher of mine. So that's you don't, just like you don't learn a language, you don't learn orality. You just, you sing this one back to me, is what Papa used to say after we'd play a song on the kora, and then I'd have to sing it back to him. That's how you repeat, you learn, and you live it. You live the culture rather than learn the culture. So that's orality versus book, but you got to have a book too. And you got this digital thing going too. Don't forget about that.
It's a wonderful tool. Like for me as a storyteller, seeing Pablo Neruda, or at least the depictions of him, and hearing Allen Ginsberg gave me permission to tell stories in a sing-songy way, which kind of makes it flow much better.
Sing-song is interesting. Let's call it that you're a continuation of the oral tradition.
Yeah.
And it's sing-songy because it makes it easier to remember.
It does. And to get into the feeling.
Exactly. And, why is it that Homer's poems, and of course there are people who say that Homer didn't exist, that the Homer was the name of the job, and there were actually 400 Homers who traveled around. And Homer's also the name of the master carpenter of the job, who took the 4 parts of the carpenter's carved of the cyclos, of the wheel, and put them together so it would roll, the way that Homer, or the Homers, put together parts of the Homeric cycle from all parts of the country and formed it into the epic poem. And the beginnings of them, everybody was gathered around and they started, and it was very set.
Yeah.
Oh, muse, listen now the story of. By the end, maybe it was just a poet there left alone. So the endings are not quite so well known because that's the way the poems were, Yeah. And Homer didn't write the Iliad or the Odyssey.
No.
Who did?
Who did?
Yeah, that's a good question. We don't know. We don't know who wrote it. Excuse me, Mr. Homer or Ms. Homer. Could you slow down? I'm trying to invent writing right now. That was what was going on. That was,
That's why keep the spoken word alive.
That's it. Yes, and digital is a good way to do that. Because you can see everything. Because it's in the gestures as well.
And 2 more final questions. How do poets afford to live in New York? A better side question is...
Doing everything.
Do they usually have a job, a second job that is very consistent? Are a lot of them involved in the same industry?
It's always been like that, T.S. Eliot's worked in a bank, and Wallace Stevens sold insurance. And William Carlos Williams was a doctor. And nowadays people, you know, a lot of poets teach. I teach, you know, and, you know, you open a poetry club, put out your books, get a little bucks here and there. YBK Publishers. Go there.
So very varied. And do you ever work with students at the Eugene Lang School?
Oh yeah, you know, Sekou Sanjata, who I mentioned during the Steve Cannon poem, was a professor there, and I have taught at the New School, and just taught with Hetty Jones, who's before mentioned, taught a class of hers at the Eugene Lang School. Yeah, I do. My first teaching gig was at the New School, and the Eugene Lang School is a great part of that.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Bob Holman, last two poems of this tour.
A real stage, and like a punk festival, or something cool and loud, salsa. Dear Shirley, this is your first morning in New York, and this poem lasts as long as life, and the Twin Towers are burning in the sky. And the Chrysler Building is keening, and the Empire State, all gray and stolid, is etching its shadow in the never-ending breakfast we call sky. Of course, all the New York poets are already out writing poems. Walt and Frank haven't even gone to bed yet, and we're all fêting Elizabeth Bishop, who coincidentally, and believe me, everything in New York is coincidence, breathing and walking, and even this poem. And your first being here on the very day, here we go again, Senorita Bishop turns like a left turn right into 100 years old. Sing, O Muse! So if this poem is as long as life, and if Elizabeth B. is 100, what does it mean? What does it mean is what we always ask poems, but since they're already out ahead of us, they only have time to briefly turn around in their kick-ass gym clothing and Fashion Week accessories and shout, whatever, and tumble on directly and digitally into a future where the Poetry Project, Nuyorican, and Bowery Poetry Club, where Poets House, Poetry Society, and the Academy, and Max Fish, and all the other holy spots like Taylor Mead's bathtub, Frank O'Hara's haircut, and John Giorno's mouth, and Ann Waldman's energy closet, all sit up with Langston Hughes and Allen Ginsberg and Frank Lima, Julio de Burgos, and rest assured, that's the motto of the day, rest assured. As your yellow taxi turns the boogie-woogie crisscross streets into Mondrian, as MoMA becomes Yo Mama, as Harlem beckons home, and Kai and I will read at the club at 6 o'clock, and who knows who will show up, which is the other thing for sure, that who will know who, as I know you, as the poem is now out of sight, and to read it, you must catch it, which means you write it. Like Eileen Miles says, and like Ellison Glenn and Bo Sia say, write it in the sky, which is now prepping lunch, and your table is ready, oh so ready, to spin.
Wow, amazing.
Okay, so a lot of name dropping in there, which is what the New York poets did, you know.
So now you're not only writing poetry, but also writing history.
Yeah, just a letter, and also it's an epistolary.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah,
So
Dear Shirley. It was her first day in New York. Okay, this is a poem for this place, Tompkins Square Pastoral. Where's my pigeons?
Where are they?
I got squirrels, but I ain't got. There's a pigeons back here. Pigeons peck poems on pavement. Ants crawl in code up paint-cracked bench. My people sprawl in vowels, yawn a couple hip-hop lines. Sunball boils in gray. Sudden rain ruins steam locomotive. It is raining. But what is it? The grass under the sidewalk shakes its greeny head.
I love how you put so much spontaneity into these poems.
Oh, you got to do that. Yeah. You're making it. Sometimes you take lines out. If you always take a line out when you're reading it, why is it in there? But sometimes I also go on and maybe like the gray sun had to be there for today.
Yeah.
And there's your pigeons. Look at them. They're up in the trees. Look at them. As Larry Eigner says, the tree sits and birds come. Yeah.
I love that. Bob, thank you so much for taking
Ariel?
us around East Village.
Welcome to my village.
Exactly, reading us some wonderful poetry that also has amazing context as to what this neighborhood is.
Yeah.
Where can people find more of your work?
I got the old website, so check that out. A lot of the audio is on Penn Sound, Penn, University of Pennsylvania. And, I've got films and I'm on Spotify. Spotify, yeah. Two albums up on Spotify.
And you also have a YouTube channel.
And I have a YouTube channel, yeah. All that stuff, trying to keep up with it,
Oh yeah, of course. And keep it alive digitally.
That's it.
Available to everyone.
Yeah.
The Unspoken and Life Poem. Check it out on Amazon. I have the links down below. And also, feel free to check out the Bowery Poetry Club. Go to one of the
Come
events.
on over Sundays and Mondays and say hello.
And also perform. And if you do perform, let me know. I would love to check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
You
amazing.
got to come in,
Oh
Ariel.
yeah. I've written a few poems, so maybe one day.
All righty.
Thank you everyone so much for tuning in. Keep being awesome and always keep on exploring. Have a great day, everyone. And I always do a wave goodbye. Want to join me?
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.